Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Pop culture has kind of completely warped our idea of high intelligence. We always picture like a chaotic genius writing backwards on a glass board or someone who instantly calculates pi to the 50th decimal. But the psychological reality, it is entirely different. Being highly intelligent rarely looks the way most people imagine. Actually, it often looks a lot more like hesitation, frustration, or even just pure exhaustion. So today, we're looking at 5 subtle signs that you are a deep thinker. And more importantly, we're going to unpack exactly why most people just don't seem to get you. Why do you feel so misunderstood? It's a heavy question, isn't it? If you've spent your life feeling like you're operating on a totally different frequency than the people around you, I really want to validate that internal experience for you right now. You are not imagining things. The truth is, many deep thinkers never realize how unusual their mind actually is. And why is that? Well, because you've only ever lived inside your own head. What feels completely normal, everyday, and standard to you is often entirely misunderstood by everyone else. You just assume everyone thinks this way, but psychology tells us they absolutely do not. So, let's lock down exactly what we mean here. A deep thinker isn't just someone who reads a ton of books or has a wall of fancy degrees. It's defined by a mind that naturally processes far more variables than average. It's a fundamental psychological difference in how you take in the world around you. When you walk into a room, you aren't just seeing the room. You are subconsciously processing the mood, the subtle social dynamics, the underlying context, and all the potential outcomes. You're absorbing a massive amount of data. And while that's absolutely a superpower, what feels totally normal to you can seem incredibly intense to everyone else. And that brings us perfectly to our first major theme of this explainer, the burden of variables. Let's look at exactly how this actually plays out in your daily life. And this brilliantly illustrates the first sign. It's literally like having a computer browser with 100 tabs open that absolutely refuse to close. Check out that massive 90% energy allocation. For an average person, moving on from a quick chat takes almost zero effort. But you might spend 10% of your energy picking a lunch spot and a massive 90% replaying a simple 5-minute conversation. Obsessing over a single period at the end of a text message, or wondering if you used the wrong tone when you just said hello to a cashier. You overthink small decisions and social interactions because highly intelligent minds naturally process more variables. You aren't just having a conversation, you're constantly analyzing different outcomes, tones of voice, and hidden meanings long after the actual words were spoken. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast in processing timelines. This is sign number 3, post-conversation analysis. The average mind hangs up the phone and just moves on immediately. The cognitive task is checked off as complete, done. But the deep thinker's mind? Hours later, you are still in the trenches. You're analyzing the problems, dissecting the responses, and suddenly spotting these overlooked connections while you're just, brushing your teeth before bed. Your mind keeps working deeply because when something doesn't make total sense, your brain simply refuses to drop the puzzle. Which brings us to this very important number, 0. That is the exact number of times a deep thinker's brain easily switches off on command. You can't just tell yourself to stop thinking. The downside of processing all these variables and making all these deep connections is simple: profound mental exhaustion. Having an endlessly analyzing mind is incredibly tiring. When your friends or family tell you to just relax or stop overthinking it, they really don't realize they're asking you to shut down a complex machine that quite literally doesn't have an off switch. Let's move on and see how this builds into our next major theme, the need for novelty. So because a quick processing mind requires premium fuel, we arrive at sign number 2. You question almost everything. While a typical mind might hear new info, accept it, and jump straight from step 1 to done, your process is radically different. It forces you to challenge the underlying assumptions, constantly ask why things are the way they are, and rigorously mentally test those ideas to see if they hold up to basic logic. Highly intelligent people rarely accept easy answers. Intelligence is deeply connected to critical thinking, which means your curiosity naturally pushes you deeper, even when everyone else is perfectly satisfied with a surface-level explanation. Take a look at the massive spike in mental stimulation for the next big challenge. This perfectly illustrates sign number 4. You get bored very easily. Simple, everyday tasks or those routine chats about the weather, incredibly low stimulation. When your mind processes information this quickly, ordinary, predictable situations actually stop feeling comforting. They feel exhausting. You're constantly scanning the horizon for the next complex problem just to feel engaged. That fast processing mind of yours is basically starving for something robust to chew on. So, what is the ultimate result of all this overthinking and this deep craving for complexity? Well, we arrive at this inevitable emotional reality, feeling out of sync. This lingering feeling of being out of sync is our fifth sign. But take a look at the why it happens column. It's rooted firmly in psychology. You are simply processing information in unusual ways. Feeling different doesn't mean feeling superior. Honestly, it often just feels like a burden. You might wonder why you can't just enjoy a simple party without, analyzing all the underlying social dynamics. You feel out of sync because your processor is running a completely different operating system than the rest of the room. So, to quickly recap, the 5 signs of a deep thinker: overthinking everything because of those endless variables, questioning easy answers, post-conversation analysis that keeps you wide awake at 2 a.m., getting bored easily, and finally feeling completely out of sync. Being a deep thinker isn't just about having a high IQ on paper. It's entirely about how your unusual mind naturally navigates the everyday world. Which leads us to one final, profound realization. So the crucial point is this. If you've recognized yourself in this explainer today, it is really time to reframe your mind. For years, you might have looked at your overthinking as anxiety, your constant questioning as being difficult, and your feeling out of sync as just social awkwardness. But as this quote beautifully notes, often gifted people don't realize they're gifted because they've never experienced life inside anyone else's mind. You've been judging your internal, complex, loud, fast-paced mind against the calm exteriors of average minds. Your restless intelligence is exhausting, yes, for sure, but it is also a remarkable, extraordinary gift. As we wrap things up, I want to leave you with a direct question. Which of these signs do you relate to the most? Is it that late-night post-conversation analysis, or maybe that heavy feeling of being just slightly out of sync? Take a moment to really appreciate your own brilliant mind today. Embrace the variables, feed your need for novelty, and never stop questioning. Thanks so much for joining me.